Let's now talk about strike prices and how that changes the value of an option. And a way to look at an option is to use the word, keep your options open. This is sometimes a just in case type of thing. It's just an agreement that gives us choices and guarantees that we can have certain rights and certain powers and certain choices and ability to do things in the future. So what is a strike price? Well, think about shaking a hand. Hey, let's strike a deal. You want to, let's put our car up for sale, and someone says, hey, I want to buy this car, and you shake hands on it, you strike a deal. And so a handshake is a symbol of a verbal agreement, and all a contract is when we write agreements down, right? And so that's really what an option is. So here, these guys say, hey, I'm going to make you a promise, and I'm going to pay you a premium. And they shake hands on it, and they strike a deal. And so in this case is, hey, I'd like the right to buy 100 shares of XYZ for the price of $10 per share. This is the strike price. That's what it is. And of course, the term is 90 days. So, with all these different things moving around, it can be a little challenging at first to understand what is what. So the premium is how much they paid for the contract. Inside the contract, they strike a deal for what the promise actually allows someone the right to do. And so a strike price is just a fixed price where the owner of this contract, this option agreement, can trade shares of stock at this agreed to price. That means that if the price of XYZ were to go up to 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, they would be able to purchase this at $10 no matter how high the stock price went. Of course, the stock price goes to 987654321 well, they're probably not going to exercise this option. They're probably not going to want to pay $10 for stock that's worth 9 or 7 or 8. So they would lose this premium, this amount of money that they put in. So, where do we get this information from? Well, we're going to be looking at options chains. And an option chain is just a table that tells us what some of these things are. So in this case, this option chain, and they can have lots of extra information on them. This one's going to be very basic. Right here, we have the strike price. And so we can see that we can shake hands and get an agreement to buy or sell the stock at 135 or 136 or 134. You as the investor get to choose, at what level you want to quote unquote shake hands. So all an option chain is a information, a place where we get the strike prices and the premiums. So this on the call side is if you want the right to buy, so just say choice to buy the option, you would come over on this side. And you can see this is a pretty healthy spread right here, 239 to 245. So if you say, look, I'd like to buy this stock at 135 over the next little while, I'll freeze that price, lock in my choice to buy it there. That means even if the stock goes to 136, 137, 140, 150, no matter how high it goes, you now have the choice to buy it at that 135. You have a guarantee. Now, what would you pay for that guarantee? Well, the bid-ask price is just like a stock. And we talked about that in technical analysis a little bit, about why these stock prices change. And of course, if you want to buy it, you're going to pay the asking price. If you want to be the person that makes the promise, you collect the bid price. And generally what we try to do is something called shaving the spread. We go between them, what we'd call a mark. So here we have 6 cents. So I might go up 3 cents and say, you know what, I'm willing to do this at maybe 242, something like that in the middle. Over here on the put side, this is the choice to sell. So maybe you own this stock and you say, hey, I want to make sure that if it goes down to 133, 132, 131, 130, I could still sell it at 135. And again, we have our bid and ask price that works the same way. So that's what an option chain is. That's where we get we get this information. Now, XYZ stock is trading today at, excuse me, $50 a share. And you could go right here, and we call this at the money. At the money means if the stock's trading at $50 a share, then we say, hey, we want the right to lock it in at 50, and that's called at the money, okay? This would be what we call in the money. So we'll call that ITM, in the money, and this is in the money by $10 right here. Because if you have the right to buy it at 40 and the stock is at 50, you're already, $10 in the money. What that tells me is this contract is going to be a minimum of $10 right there, right? Because no one's going to sell this for less than $10 because it has what's called intrinsic value. Intrinsic, I don't know if I'm spelling this right, intrinsic value. And the intrinsic value is, of course, $10. If I can buy it at 40 and it's selling today at 50, no one's going to sell me this contract for less than $10. That'd be crazy to do, right? Over here, however, let's say I want to go what we call out of the money. Okay, so we have at the money, in the money, and out of the money. Okay, well, who would ever want to pay 60 for a stock that's only worth 50? So this is $10 out of the money. It has zero intrinsic value, right? Intrinsic value. It doesn't really have any value to it whatsoever. So why would someone pay for this? Well, what it would have is what we call time value or extrinsic value. Let's say this was a month-long contract. Well, who's to say it doesn't get above 60 in a month? It has potential. So when you look at an option, you want to see, does it have any intrinsic value and does it have any time value? What is it? Now, here's your little quiz. How much intrinsic value is right here? Well, the way to decide if there's intrinsic value is to simply say this: can I boast about the option? And let's see if we can boast about the option without looking silly. So let's come over here and say, hey, I can buy this at 40 even though it's 50. Is that worth bragging about? Yeah, you can get away with boasting. That's pretty cool if you can buy it at 40 and it's at 50. So this must have some intrinsic value because that makes sense. But if it say, hey, look how neat I am. Look at the privileges I have. I can buy this at 50. Well, anyone can buy it at 50. That's what it's selling for today. So this also has what? Zero intrinsic value. Just doesn't have any intrinsic value right here. And so the only value that we would have here is, would this still be worth paying for? Probably. But it'd be potential value, right? What may happen. It'd be the value of letting time run its course. It wouldn't be anything intrinsic today. Maybe it goes to 51, 52, 53. That'd be kind of cool. I might pay for that, right? Of course, I'd probably pay more for this one than I would for this one. This is a long way out. So this would probably have the most value over here of time and intrinsic. This would probably be next. This would be the least valuable. Why is it the least valuable? Well, that stock has to go $10 before you can really brag about it. Here it only has to go $1, or 1 penny before you can start to brag about it. So this introduces the idea that when you purchase your option contracts, you can do them at the money, you can do them out of the money, or you can do them in the money. And I'll share with you some ideas on what I think about when I do this. I stay away from giving financial advice always, but I will show you what goes into some of these choices where you can make your own choice. And we'll begin to talk about time decay and some really cool stuff on here. So it's kind of nice, right? Of course, this is the right to buy. These are call options. This is the right to sell. So let's do the same thing with the right to sell. Well, if I have the right to sell it at 50, anyone that owns the stock could trade it at 50 today. So this is, again, at the money, okay? However, here, if I have, or let's go over here. If I have the right to sell this at 60 and it's only 50. I have the right to sell it. Well, my gosh, I'm in the money now because I'm a seller, and I get to say, my gosh, there's $10 of that intrinsic value. So if someone wanted to purchase this put option and have the right to sell at 60 when the stock's only trading at 50, I guarantee you that thing, I mean, that's got intrinsic value in it, man. That's going to be a $10 option for sure, at least, plus whatever time we have. Here we're at the money. Let's do our test. Can we boast about being able to sell it at 50? Not really. Anyone could sell it on the market at 50. So this has 0 intrinsic value. Not have any intrinsic value. Now, would it be cool, though, to have this option for maybe 3 months? You know, boy, if you had a stock that was $50 a share and this stock over the next 3 months fell to 40 or 30, that'd be pretty cool to have. So I might pay for this option, but it doesn't have any value in it immediately, right? Immediately. And I might not even own the stock. Think about this. If I just thought this stock was going to fall, and I didn't want to short the stock because I have infinite risk if it goes higher, maybe I just pay a premium, a fixed amount for this, and I get the right to sell at 50. Well, think about it. Now, if the stock went down to 40 or 30, I could go buy it at 30 and then turn around and sell it for 50 because I have the right to. So you don't even need to own the stock to do this. Now, this one right here is way out of the money, isn't it? It's out of the money. I can't brag about being able to sell it for 40 if people in the market will pay 50 for it. So again, there is 0 intrinsic, if I'm spelling that right, value in these stocks. So if you need to go through this segment again, that's why we just allow people to get this, over and over and over and do it anytime they want, so we can understand at the money, in the money, and out of the money. And again, you'll notice that if you have the right to buy it, again, let's do our test. Can I boast about being able to buy it for 40 if it's worth 50? Yes, that's awesome. I have $10, right, of, we'll call it IV, intrinsic value. That's really, really cool. Hey, you can sing the song, we're in the money. Right? We're in the money. Here, we're just right at the money. We're right at the same price. It's here. Oh, gee, we can't brag about this for another $10. So this is out of the money. 0 intrinsic value. 0 intrinsic value. In the money, at the money, out of the money. $10 of intrinsic value, right? No intrinsic value because it's the same. And then this is $10 out of the money. So as you learn to trade, there's jargon. And we don't want to have the misunderstood words. So, we'll take painstaking steps here in this class. If you're a member of the Mentor Club, we don't always stop to define the jargon because it's an immersion experience. It's like going to a new country, like maybe you go to China, and they speak Chinese. Well, if you just hop into the culture, they're not going to stop and define every word they use. You just pick it up as you go along. That's what the Mentor Club's like. What's nice here is we say, hey, we're going to define what this is. So if the option chain were here, and we had strikes of $40, $50, and $60, and that's what the strikes looked like, we could use jargon in two ways. We could say, this is an out of the money option. We could say this is an at the money option, and this is an in the money option, and this is an out of the money option, right? $40, that's in the money, $10. $60, that's out of the money. It's just not, there's no money there. It's outside of where the money is. This is way inside where the money is. Another way we could do this is we could say this is the at the money strike, right? We could say this is the at the money strike. And we could also say this is one strike, right? We could say this is one strike out of the money, or we could say this is one strike in the money, or we could say, this is $10 out of the money, or this is $10 in the money. We could use the number of strikes away, or we could use the dollar amount. And in the Mentor Club, you'll hear us as we choose options use this type of jargon all the time. So it's cool to start understanding that now. You might hear me in the Mentor Club say, let's go 3 strikes out of the money here. Or let's go, look, we're $10 in the money here. And so learning this jargon is opposed to the dollar amount or the number of strikes, the number of choices where we can shake hands is very, 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 very common. So at first, anytime you learn a new language, it can be intimidating. It can be, what's all this in the money, out of the money, out the money stuff? Or maybe you found it very easy to understand. But either way, it's going to be fun in the coming weeks and months to enter a club that speaks the same language, in the money, out of the money. You might send Corey or Noah or someone on our staff or our team an email and say, hey, I have a question. I'm going to buy this option, or I'm paper trading this option, and I'm not sure what's in the money or out of the money. Well, we never give it financial advice, but we can always tell you whether something's in or out of the money. And so that's good stuff. So there you have it, right there, in and out of the money. Let's go ahead and erase that and talk about this. If we want to practice this, which I think it'd be good to do, let's say that you and I were talking, we're just writing this down on maybe a napkin, and I'm going to quiz you a little bit right here. Let's say that you say, hey, Andy, or I say, hey, I've got the 40 strike call. So this is the one that I've got right here. Let me put that in green. I say, hey, I've got the 40 strike call, and today it's at $50. So what type of jargon would you say? Well, first of all, is it in the money or out of the money? If it's trading at $50 and I have the 40 strike call, is that in the money? Is that worth bragging about? If the stock is trading at 50, is that cool that you could buy it at 40? Think about that for a minute. Everyone else on the stock market's paying 50, but you got the inside track, man. You have a contract, allows you to buy at 40. Is that worth bragging about? So is that in the money or out of the money? And how many strikes in the money is it? From the out the money option. Well, if you said, Andy, that call is 2 strikes in the money, you got the answer right. Let's say that I had the 45 strike call. Well, what would you say? You say, well, Andy, it looks like you have the 45 call. That's 1 strike in the money, or $5 in the money, right? Or $5 in the money. Where's the at the money option? Well, it's at 50 right here. This would be 1 strike out of the money, because it's, if the stock's $50 and we can buy it at 55, well, that's not really cool to, say, yeah, I could buy this for 55. Someone's going to say, well, look, man, I can buy it at 50 on the market right now. So why are you so special? So we can't really brag about that. Of course, this is 2 strikes out of the money. Well, on the put side, it's going to be just the opposite, right? If you have the right to sell at 60 and everyone else is only willing to pay 50, well, God, that's 2 strikes in the money, or what we'd call $10 in the money. What if I had the 55 strike put, right? If I had the 55 strike put, then I'd be 1 strike in the money, or $5. It'd be pretty cool to sell that at 55 if it was only trading at 50. At the money, right, at 50, it's the same. And then this is 1 strike out and 2 strikes out. Of course, it's not very cool to be able to sell at 40 if the market would give you $50 for it today. So that starts to give you an idea of how an option chain works in terms of in the money, out of the money, at the money, strike. So, part of your homework right here, at the end of this particular section, we'll when we finish the options section here, and then we'll get into some example trades, is to find an option chain and start practicing seeing what's in the money portion and the out of the money portion in these options. Where are they? Can you boast about your option? let's do another exercise together and see if we're grasping this well. The stock price is at 91. And here I can shake hands at any of these prices. I can lock it in at 90, 95. I can lock it in at 85. So this is pretty cool stuff here. Over here, I see that if I want to shake hands, and let's say I want to shake hands at $100, and this is a call option. So think about this. This is the right to buy. Okay, so let's write that in here. The call option gives me the choice to buy the stock at $100. Well, what's the intrinsic value of this? What is it? Well, the intrinsic value is 0. It's not really cool to be able to buy it at 100 if I could buy it at 91 today on the stock market. So the question is, why are they charging me 3 cents because there's no intrinsic value? Oh, because of the time value, right? So I automatically know that this 3 cents isn't for any intrinsic value, nothing to brag about. But you know what? Who knows? Maybe this stock can get up over 100 by the time it expires. Maybe this option has enough time in it for that to happen. So when I look at an option premium, I can do just a little simple math here, and I can decide how much is the intrinsic value in this premium and how much am I paying for time value. It's pretty easy to do after you practice a little bit. Now, let's do another one right here. Right here, we'd have the right to buy it at 95. Now, again, can we boast about it? If I walk around and I go to all my friends and say, hey, I can buy this stock at 95, but your friends have a real-time quote on their phone at 91, they're not going to think you're very cool. They're going to think you're kind of silly, right? I can buy this at 95 right now. Well, Andy, I can buy it at 91. So again, we see we have 0 intrinsic value. So why is someone willing to pay 14 cents for this? Well, that's the time that they have hoping that it can get above 95. Now notice a trend here, that the closer to the stock's price, or the closer we get to the at-the-money option, one that's really close, the more expensive it gets. Why is that? Well, let's say this was a 1-month option. The chance of this getting above 95 are greater than the chances of this getting above 100 because it has farther to go. So someone's going to pay more for this one because it has a better chance of becoming valuable than this one does. So the further away from the current stock price, or the further away of what we call the at-the-money option, the less expensive these will be. So people get excited. They say, no, wait. You're telling me that for 3 cents, I don't have to pay $91 to see if this gets above 100. I only have to pay 3 cents to see if it gets above 100. And I say, that's exactly right. Instead of paying $91 for the stock to own the stock to see if it goes high, you could literally pay 3 cents. And if it went above 100, 110, 120, 130, you'd be able to buy it at 100, no matter how high it went. The problem is likelihood. And I really recommend, if you want to get deep into this, take the Ultimate Options course, because in that course, we can really start delving into the math and the probabilities of how this might be. Because while this might be cheap, for a big payoff, it goes to $200, that's exciting, but it's also a lottery ticket. And so that should be a clue that I'm going to give you now, that even though these are very, very cheap, that, you can lose 100% of 3 cents here, right? Pretty easy. You can lose 100% of 14 cents here, lose all your investment, 100% of it. Now, that's not like losing $91 because, again, maximum risk is just the premium you've paid when you buy an option. Okay, now here's something that's kind of interesting to look at. Is this at the money? Now, they call this the at the money option because it's close. But the reality is it is $1 in the money, isn't it? And so I say, can I boast about my option? Absolutely I can. Absolutely I can. So I know I have $1 of intrinsic value here. If I own this option, I know that I can buy the stock at 90, even though it's worth 91. That's $1 of intrinsic value. Well, I look over here and the price is 178. So, well, where's that other 78 cents for? Well, guess what? That's the time value. That's how long I get to hold this. And that's valuable because, boy, I'm already $1 in the money. This goes to $92. I've already covered that, right? $93. I've already covered that. So this does not have to move very far. If this moves to, 92.79, I've paid back my premium and I'm really off to the races. So even though this one's $1.78, the chances of this one being valuable and paying me are much, 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 much greater than these out here because it doesn't need to move very far. Think about it. This one has to move. If I buy the $100 one, it's got to move $10 before it gets intrinsic value. Here, it's got to move $5 before it gets intrinsic value. But here, look at this. It's already in the money by $1, and it will really explode in value if that stock goes the right way. Now, here we have 85, and we say, gee, if I can buy at 85 and they're willing to pay 91, how much intrinsic value is there? Already $6. Already $6. And I look over here at 31, and I say, gee, well, how much is the time value here? If I have $6 here, I know that there's 31 cents I'm paying for time value. And then, of course, here we're $11 in the money here. So this is going to be $11 option. And I have 29 cents of time value. So it's very, very, very important to begin to wrap our head around options and understanding the intrinsic value of an option and the time value of an option, and which ones are more likely to become valuable, and how much we're paying for real stuff and how much we're paying for the clock ticking away. So basically the intrinsic value is what we call the in the money portion of the option premium. In other words, the intrinsic value here, well, a portion of this is for time and a portion of this is for intrinsic value. So here it's $1. The portion of this one is $6. The portion of this one is $11. And it's pretty easy math to figure out. So there it is, printed nice and neat and things like this. So now we're going to speak about expiration. And this is an important thing to speak about. So when we come back, we'll be speaking about expiration. And boy, if we can get premium down and understand what premium is, and we can understand strike price and how option values work, and then we can understand how expiration works, and what we're going to talk about something called time decay. Tell you what, we're going to be in fine shape. So when we come back, we're going to take a look at expiration.